Did you want to start with?
Now,
Yeah, Prabhu, please.
okay, because you mentioned a lot reality, yeah? So how do you define reality and what is the nature of reality?
Well, I mean, Hare Krishna.
Oh, also repeat the question so that everyone can hear a little bit.
So we use I'll repeat, I'm repeating the Prabhu's question. We use the term reality a lot, and the question is how do we define reality, and what is the nature of reality? Uh, and it's kind of the most important question in the world, really. What is reality? There's a lot of levels to the reality, but maybe we'll start with the answer and then kind of get to the how we can make our progression toward that. Many people over many times have had the answer to this question, all of which are a viewpoint of a particular angle of reality. But what is the fundament of reality? That's actually the search of all the great sages, sadhus, philosophers, scientists. Everybody ultimately is trying to search for the answer to this question. What is reality? And the Veda, which the word Veda means knowledge. It's a compilation of knowledge over time. The Veda is pointing to something very beautiful, ultimately, as the nature of reality. Um, and Srila Guru Maharaj, in his own English, summarized it in this way: Sri Krishna is reality, and reality is beautiful. So ultimately, if we're very honest with ourselves, when we're searching for reality, we're not just searching for a bunch of facts and figures. We're actually engaging in a search with our heart. And what is our heart searching for? Beauty, charm, love, ecstasy. That's Sri Krishna. And he is underpinning all of reality. If you read Gita, Krishna is explaining very clearly, everything is strung on me like pearls on a string. Everything is resting on me like pearls are resting on a string in a necklace. Chapter 7. And again, many times Arjuna is saying, how can I know you? How can I remember you? And Krishna is saying, I'm the taste of water, right? I'm this, I'm that. So many aspects of the world we find ourselves in. Krishna is saying, that's me. Okay? So we have to understand that actually he is the conscious source of reality, and reality is something that's occurring in consciousness, right? So our journey is a conscious journey. In other words, it's a spiritual journey. Spirit and consciousness mean the same thing. The world that we populate, that we live in, is a world that exists in our mind. This is a very fundamental principle that we have to understand. This is the Vedic understanding. And Krishna himself very clearly explains this in chapter 13 of Gita. It's called Prakriti Purusha Yoga. That ultimately there's an amalgamation of experience that's occurring within each of our conscious, we have a conscious field. Krishna says there's kshetra and kshetragya. And we're living in what may be a distorted view of reality. But for us, that's our world. And the conscious journey is to get closer and closer to what actually reality is. And that's the search for Sri Krishna. Okay? And that journey can be very, very complicated, or it can be very, very simple. And the advocation of Mahaprabhu is to make it simple. You know, because reality, if you think about consciousness, consciousness has so many fields. One field of consciousness is just the field of the senses. And the science that almost all of us are brainwashed with completely by going to school, the scientific viewpoint is the only way to seek truth is through your senses. In fact, anything that is not viewable by a data instrument that's based on our senses is dismissed as impossible, whether that's true or not. For example, I think about 70 to 80% of the population believe in ghosts. Okay? This is just a small example, but it's conveying a point about how unreliable this scientific brainwashing, quote unquote science, it's not real science, but scientific brainwashing that we receive is. Why does 70 to 80% of the population believe in ghosts? Because everybody experiences ghosts. Science of our current science can't explain that because it's occurring on a level that our data sensors can't receive. So what do? What do they do with anything they can't explain? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Shh, doesn't exist.
So it is not perceivable, it doesn't exist.
It's not perceivable by our sensory data, right? But that's just the very beginning of reality is the data of the senses. The Vedic viewpoint is just within this universe, there are so many dimensions. Okay? One dimension that we're in, and scientists understand that reality is dimensional. Dimensional is a plane of experience. It's a dimension, right? We live in a world that's populated by our senses. This world, we receive certain amount of the light spectrum. We hear certain amounts of the sound spectrum. We have a particular vibration that our skin vibrates at that's in conflict with other types of vibration. And because of that, we have the sense of touch. If you have the right energy, this thing is not solid. It's only solid because I have a particular energy in my finger and this desk has a particular energy. The whole world is a projection that's occurring in our mind. Okay, it's consciousness. But that's only a sensory reality. Just in this material universe, the Vedas is saying that there's bhur, bhu, right? Bhuloka. That means the world of the senses that we have. But again, we're only perceiving a little sliver of that. So really, what we call reality, the scientists call reality, is a sliver of bhu, energy, which is material energy within this material universe. Then what's the next level? Bhuvaha. Bhuvaha means the subtle energy, the pranic body. Well, these guys can't manipulate prana, so what do they tell you? It doesn't exist. Right? There's cultures all over the world that are dealing with something, maybe they don't call it prana, like in Chinese culture, they call it qi, right? But there's another level, there's another kind of energy that is permeating, right? And then that energy has its own channel and its own basis, right? In Sanskrit, it's called akasha, which is the ether field that vibrations pass through. All these things are all within the material universe. There's bhuva, then there's svaha, then there's moha, then there's jana, then there's tapa, then there's satya. Just within this world. That's just the energies of this material world. Then there's Prakriti Nirvana, Brahma Nirvana, Shiva Loka, and then Vaikuntha Loka and all the relationships with the Lord in Vaikuntha Loka. But these are all motions in consciousness. So when we say reality, the search for reality has many, many answers. For the small-minded, their reality is to only dominate the little tiny world of our senses. Right? That's the scientific reality. How do I create comfort and security within this little tiny world? But a sadhu is going to search deeper and deeper and deeper. And so when a devotee says reality, they're saying Sri Krishna, the conscious basis of all of these layers of experience. And so when Guru Maharaj is saying, evaluate, make your choice. You're free. You have choices. What is the reality you want to search for? Right? You can search for all kinds of realities and you can live in those realities. You can live in Durga Loka. You can worship her and get a few little material things and maybe one day she'll cut your head off. Jive. Right?
But you can say that the reality reveals itself. Can you say that?
Well, yes. And the advocation of Mahaprabhu is don't go through all these layers. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and he said, no, you don't have to now. You have to do some yoga so you can experience more of the light spectrum. Then maybe you can fully experience Bhuloka. Then you can move to the subtle plane and start interacting with ghosts and rakshasas and all these kinds of things in Bhuva Loka. Then you can experience the demigods in Swarga Loka, Swaha, right? Mahaprabhu said, no, 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 don't do all these. You'll spend billions of years on one thing. And you're not actually getting to the basis. And Arjuna is asking these questions in Gita, and Krishna's giving the answer. I'm at the basis of all of this. Know me. And then he explains so many things. You know, dhyana yoga, oh, sit on the kusha mat, face in this direction, halfway close your eyes. This is how you meditate. But then what's at the end of chapter 6? Well, almost the same thing as at the end of every chapter in Gita. Or you can just love me and know me. So the advocation of Mahaprabhu is go straight to the center. Go straight to Sri Krishna. In every moment of your life, find the basis of reality and start to operate in a mood of love and reciprocation with that. Don't go through all these millions of layers. You'll never stop. Right? Because ultimately your relationship with all those is not perfect. You're trying to manipulate it. We're trying to exploit it. We're trying to figure out how I can get a little bit more, or I can have the moat, you know. how can I get more? Right? We have an exploitation relationship. So, you know, in the same way as, like, you know, famously the Europeans colonized much of the world. What does colonize mean? It means I'm going to come and I'm going to try to take it over and see what it can give me. In the same way, the Bhakti mentality wants to colonize the spiritual world, right? We want to see, is that a nice place? Okay, great. Give me some of that. I want that, you know, and we want to control it and colonize it and make it have something that gives something to me, right? The mood of approaching the most fundamental plane always has to be a mood of service and giving. So the avocation is become a happy giver to reality and see what comes back to you. And the devotees are telling what comes back to you. You want to serve reality and you will receive prema. Your heart will be filled. Everything that you're searching for, every level of beauty, every level of experience is all within Krishna. He is Akhila Rasamritamurti. What you think you want, those are all just fabrications in your mind. I mean, really think about it. Nobody knows what happiness is. Even in academic studies, they're like, it seems like you need to make about 50,000 pounds a year, and you need one of these and one of that, and blah, 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 and then you're happy. That's complete junk, right? Nobody knows what happiness is. Here's the secret. Happiness is a person. It's Krishna. You have to come into connection with Krishna. All this illusory potency, that's called Bahiranga, means you're looking outside. You think if you just manipulate and accumulate enough objects outside of you, that somehow it's going to give you the feeling that you want inside. That's Maya Shakti. That's Maya. You think if you just accumulate objects, you're going to be happy. But actually, Akhila Rasamritamurti is Krishna. That means all the rasa that you're seeking, which is really what you're seeking. Think about it. If you want to go buy a car, why are you buying a car? I want that car. Oh, it's so cool looking. Oh, blah, 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 blah. What are you really seeking for when you want to go buy a car? You want the feeling that you think having that car is going to give you. That's what you're seeking. You're seeking rasa. And when you have a little bit of spiritual development, you can understand that the rasa that you're seeking is actually inside Sri Krishna. So this is two ways of interacting with reality. It's called Bahiranga, means outside. Outside, I manipulate the outside and I'm going to get the feeling I want. And also, if the outside is not how I like it, then I'm going to get the bad feeling. I'm controlled by the outside. That's Maya. But actually, if you understand what I'm seeking is in the Lord, then you can turn inside and make the real journey, the spiritual journey. And that's the advocation, the very developed conclusion of the seekers of the truth. You know, people who have bravery and courage. Because you ask the question, what is reality? It takes a very courageous person to seek the answer to that question. And the sadhus have sought that answer. And they've received the living answer from living reality. Arjuna is seeking that answer. And reality himself gave the answer. Right? Like, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. You don't just abandon all these systems of ethics. They're not going to do it for you. Surrender to me. Ahang tvang sarva papebhyo. All the reactions that are coming to you, they will be dissolved. Moksha shyami mahashucha. And you will come to some type of plane of freedom. So these have to be contemplated and understood because you're a free person. You have freedom as a soul. What is the highest thing that you can conceive of? It's a good question. The Vaishnavas have a proposal. Here's the highest thing. But everyone has to evaluate that themselves. But you better start to evaluate it at least. Right? No, there's no forcing in anything. Even Krishna in Gita, although the whole time he's talking to Arjuna, he says, this is my opinion. Do what you like. Multiple times he says this. This is my opinion. Do what you like. And we all have that freedom. What's the highest thing you can think of? If you walk up to someone, you say, what's the highest thing you can think of? And they don't have an answer, it's not good. But you walk up to yourself and you ask yourself that, it's also not good when you're like, oh. You should be evaluating what is the greatest thing I can think of to dedicate my life to. And maybe you come up with an answer and it's like, well, you know, I really, really, really want to work for British Airways. And that's the greatest thing I can dedicate my life to. Okay, good. Go do it. See what happens. That's really the object. That's the result of your search is you came up with that as the best thing that you could possibly do. Good for you. Go for it. Then you're going to get what you get from serving British Airways. And then you're going to go, is that really the highest thing? And then the search is going to start again. Right? And if you're really lucky, you'll come into connection with a Vaishnava who will tell you something really true. But you'll come into connection with something. And somebody will go, no. What you really need to do is you need to do, Kundalini or something. And then you go, oh, wow, yeah, there's energy chakras in my body. Oh my God. Right? And then you're going to feel something and then you're going to feel unsatisfied. Eventually. And then you're going to go, wait, what's actually real? Who's feeling the Kundalini? What is the energy that's populating the chakras in my body? Where does that come from? You're going to move in your journey, right? And ultimately, the conclusion of those who have moved in that journey for many, many, many lifetimes and who have received the grace of the Lord is Sri Krishna is reality. And we have to come into connection with him. And then what is the process of that? Mahaprabhu is advocating Saranagati. You have to practice Saranagati in your life very practically, not in a false or showy way, in the actual circumstances of your existence. There has to be a connection to your spiritual life and to the Lord.
Yeah.
So we have another question. Could you please elaborate a little bit more on the space in between deciding to want to engage in this process and the ideal, the objective? And an example of this is what you were explaining earlier today about bhukti, mukti, and bhakti. We are haunted by these ghosts of exploitation and renunciation, but we want bhakti. still we're immersed and we're dealing with these things, right? And so Krishna says the solution to that is yukta vairagya. But in light of this tendency for forgetfulness and the lack of purity on the practitioner's part to properly align with this principle of yukta vairagya, can you provide some solace, please?
Okay, I'm gonna show you. Okay, well, we're on a journey. We know that we're afflicted with diseases of, I'm repeating the question, right? We know we're afflicted with different diseases, you could say, of consciousness. And the disease one is bhukti, which is that external idea that I need to manipulate the world in order for me to be happy. And the reason why I'm unhappy is because I haven't manipulated the world just quite right yet. And if I just manipulated a little bit more and I got the right thing in my garage and, the better couch and the this and the that, then I'm going to be happy, right? That's bhukti consciousness. And it's completely dependent on the outside. Then mukti consciousness is, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm tired of this whole situation. I'm out of here. And that means I quit. Mukti means I quit. So you're part of a system, you have something to do, and you're like, you know what, I'm done. That's mukti. So then bhakti means I'm going to dedicate myself in the situation I find myself. I'm going to give fully to the Lord. I'm going to dedicate myself. I'm going to see everything as His. I'm going to see myself as His. And I'm going to dedicate myself to the Lord. So then yukta vairagya means this. Because what happens is all religion becomes fundamentalist over time. Have you ever, everybody always heard the term religious fundamentalism? Well, it's kind of a hard thing to actually understand.
It's a subtle point.
Right? It's a very subtle point. What is religious fundamentalism? How do you protect yourself against it? All religion in this world, like you could say, the influence of the world makes it fundamentalist. And fundamentalism means that, again, everything becomes external, right? So instead of saying Krishna bhakti is actually the essence of what I'm doing, you're going to start to say, oh, you need to dress this way, and you need to do that, and you need to, have this and don't have that, right? There's going to be some list of rules, and every religion has it. It's like, do this thing, don't do that thing. Have this thing, don't have this thing. Dress this way, don't dress that way. Have a beard, don't have a beard. Whatever it is, right? Everybody's going to have some type of regulation that is existing in the world. Now, the sadhus have come and given that regulation for the good of the people. But the point of the regulation is to make spiritual upliftment. But immediately fundamentalism comes and makes religion itself bahiranga. It makes religion itself external. And then the essence is lost. And Krishna is saying, yada yada hi dharmasya. Always I have to come back and say, no. It's this internal real thing, right? Yukta vairagya means there's a religious practice of vairagya. Vairagya, generally you can say there's a tradition of like, hey, let me have Jai Shripada Deva Shish Prabhu ki jai. There's a tradition of vairagya. Vairagya means I'm going to have some abnegation when it comes to objects within this world. And that means I'm not going to let these things, these attachments dominate me, right? But then the vairagya itself can become a type of fundamentalism where it's like you lose track of the purpose. And so yukta vairagya means actually the purposes of everything is for Krishna. And I'm not going to abandon anything if it's used for his service. If it's not used for his service, then I have no need for it. But vairagya will say, don't have anything. Don't, like, for example, vairagis, in the time of Saraswati Thakur. Saraswati Thakur took a car. He's a sannyasi. He's supposed to be renounced. And then the fundamentalists who lost track of what the essence is are like, oh, look at him. He's got a car. Oh, he's doing it wrong. He's not a real sannyasi. And Saraswati Thakur is showing the real way. No, I'm using this in seva, so I will take anything in seva and I will use it for the Lord. Whatever is existing within this world. So as Guru Maharaj said, this is Rupa Goswami's line, prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna. Everything is in relation to Hari, but we're not going to abandon the world. We're going to utilize the world in his seva as it's meant to be utilized, as we're meant to be utilized. So that's the harmonization, right? We have to see ourselves as for the Lord, and we have to see everything as for the Lord. And according to our the service necessity that is coming up in our commitment to Guru and in our life that we're trying to dedicate, then we'll take whatever is necessary to do that. But we can't have a fundamentalist approach to these things. Otherwise, we're going to be completely lost. We're going to do what we do with everything. We want to limit the thing, box it in, and then go like, yep, I got it. Right? But God is dynamic, and the possibilities of your life and of seva are very dynamic. And you have to move within that in a natural way and offer everything to Krishna. And that's part of the process of Saranagati, right? Because Guru Maharaj is fundamentally saying he is the controller of the environment, right? Krishna is the controller of the environment. And that means, I can find myself in a circumstance that I don't like. I mean, like maybe my boss fires me one day from work, okay? Well, just to throw out an example. Well, a whole part of my ego is going to say, oh, that person is like this and they did that and da-da-da-da-da, right? And then I'm going to lose track of Krishna is the controller of my destiny. The real harmony is my Lord has put this circumstance in front of me. He's my friend. He's good. I'm going to start my relationship with this circumstance with that vantage point. And then you can find the progression, and you're not going to have some other viewpoint where you're judging it from another perspective. Because it's very easy to take your religion and then, like, for example, if your boss fires you, from one viewpoint, you can say, oh, yeah, look at this person. They're a meat eater. Mm-hmm. And that's why they didn't like me. And blah, 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 and it's all this and that, right? You can have all kinds of judgments on the circumstance, but the fundamental beginning of the relationship with that circumstance should be his grace is occurring. His grace is occurring. Prashadam is coming to me. In fact, Guru Maharaj uses the sentence, he has tasted this and now he is giving it to me. So this mood that prashad is what's coming is the harmony, right? And then Gurudev said prashadam can save the world. And prashadam means grace is what prashad means. And it's not only coming in the form of food. It's coming in the form of whatever is his remnant. And we have to start to see that he is the smiling face behind the curtain. And in that, we'll find our progression in life. Because we don't actually know what's wrong with us, and we don't actually know what our way forward is, but he does. So we will see these circumstances as his grace and then begin our offering in relationship to that, right? Because like you can think of life as like this virtuous circle of offering and prashad, right? We're making an offering in uncertainty. We don't know if he'll accept it. We don't know if we're doing the right thing. We get our advice from our friends. We get our advice from the higher quarter. And in the end, we're making an offering in our life. We're doing something in our life. And then we get some reciprocation. And Guru Maharaj said, you have to see that as prasad. All right. And that prasad is going to contain your adjustment. It's going to contain your way forward. It's going to contain your progression. Because ultimately, progression is something that's very, very subtle, and we don't understand what it is, especially when we're not progressed. So progression is going to come in a way that maybe is surprising to us, that maybe is highlighting something inside of us that we didn't even know was wrong, right? All these kinds of things are coming by His grace, but the harmony of all of it is to see the grace of the Lord and to try to offer back to that and not be bound by these limited ideas that can become very fundamentalist. Anybody have anything to add?
I feel like, was there a secondary part of the question?
Well, actually, it is in my mind about fundamentalism and its tendency to box things in.
Yeah. And fundamentalism is on the rise in Kali Yuga. Yay. Fundamentalism is kind of, you have to contemplate it a little bit. It's like an insidious infiltration that's actually continuous. And it's from this like kind of overarching need to dominate and control. And it infiltrates all the way into spiritual life, right? So much so that if someone else is doing some other type of form, like they're not going to the chosen place, right? And this has been very explicitly discussed actually by Srila Guru Maharaj in Sri Guru and His Grace, right? This idea that the infinite is under one person's jurisdiction. I mean, Guru Maharaj's own response, he even laughs, right? You know, that the infinite will be controlled by like one party, and that if you are not within that group of people, that you're lost and forlorn for eternity, right? Which is what happens in fundamentalism. And then you hear like these kind of opposing things in these different scriptures, right? Where you're saying, if you're coming, right, Guru Maharaj's own words, if you're coming into contact with that plane of faith, then you should feel some expansion that is occurring in your own consciousness, right? You should be feeling more connected with everything and everyone in your life, right? Because that's the plane, right? Mahaprabhu, infinity in distribution means the Lord Himself is so kind. And if we're coming into some wavelength of that expression of kindness, then you also feel like compassion and affection for reality and for all of its constituents, right? So then, like, it's very secondary. And in the Bhagavatam, also these stories are addressed, right? Like, we have to hear it apparently unlimited times to sort of deal with this problem of trying to like crush very large things into small, like chewable, exploitable things. So like, what's the story in the Bhagavatam? There's a massive sacrifice, right? There are these Brahmins. They're not foolish, right? It's very easy to kind of just like, these Brahmins. It's like, no, these people are erudite, right? They don't just have a few shlokas. Remember, all the scriptures that are written down now were passed down by hearing for millions of years, right? And we see the last dregs of that in the stories of Guru Maharaj himself, right? Where he's listening to questions being asked to him, right? And he's counting the questions on his hands and then answering all of those questions in order. Like at this point in time, like the idea, it's almost like a fantasy novel that such a memory could exist, right? So you're going, oh, who are these Brahmins? All of those verses are in them. And they understand the elemental deities of the local area, right? They understand you have to perform some sacrifice for the good of everyone, right? It's you, right? Bhagavad Gita is saying, you won't be happy. Uh-oh, that's a pretty big sentence. If you don't perform sacrifice in this lifetime or the next lifetime, you won't be happy. right? That's why Gormarsh's own sentence, right? He's saying like you have to learn how to give. If that's really like you start to pick up some sand and like make some atrophied movement towards reality of like letting if that's too much, don't even pick up sand. Start to make this motion in yourself. Start to try to like contribute and like give to reality. It's going to help you so much. Right? So these brahmanas are performing this sacrifice. And what happens in this story of the sacrifice? The Lord himself arrives with all of his friends and he wants a snack because kids always want snacks in between meals. And the brahmanas are like, hey, kids, like we're busy. Like we're in the middle of a mantra here, you know? And what happens? The wives of the brahmanas, their hearts are overflowing and they can't stop it. So what do they immediately do? They start, and like, what's the purpose of all the sacrifices in the end? To try and have some reciprocation with the Lord. We ourselves, why is this story? There's millions of stories in the scriptures. Why is there only a few in Bhagavatam finally left? Only a few, right? Even though it's, yes, it's a lot of volumes, but actually it's quite a small collection that's left in Kali Yuga. Why that one then, right? Because there's so many stories you can focus on. Well, why that story? It's illuminating a very important point that we don't want to be stuck in a ritual when maybe the Lord himself or a sadhu will pass and we won't be able to serve that sadhu. That's a tragedy, right? That all of our meditation has gotten us stuck in a ritual that we may not have some heart movement actually happen, right? That's what we're saying. That the temple ultimately is a place of shelter to try and do service to the sadhu, service to like, and what is this book, right? This is the expression of the sadhu's mercy in the form of a book, right? And so they, oh, then if you serve this book, then actually this book may reveal itself to you. If you serve the people that are around you, they may reveal their hearts to you. If you start to serve the environment, it may start to reveal something of itself to you. So the danger of fundamentalism is I may get stuck in some ritual and it's not true navigation. Why? Because life is actually what happens when the anomaly comes. Okay? So your life is unscripted. There's not going to be a page, right? This is not saying like when you hit the traffic light, you turn left every single time and you'll find your destination. Right? That's not actually what this book is saying. It's a very subtle navigation system that's actually being given so that you can navigate the anomalous situations of your own life. Right? That's what Mahabharata is going into over and over. There's major disasters at hand. Okay? Lives are at stake. And they're very carefully considering what should I do in this circumstance? Well, that's us. We have to carefully consider what to do in the anomalous circumstance. It's not going to say like you live in this neighborhood in Kali Yuga, then you definitely have to go like drive 3 miles every day. You're like, right? You have to do this number of things every day, and then like revelation
Can I just jump in
comes.
for a second?
Yeah.
This is a really important point because all of us are very unique people and we're all living unique lives, extremely unique lives. Every single one of us has interactions and occurrences and a particular relationship with the days that we live that is completely different from the other person. And unscripted is a good word. Unlegislated. Unlegislated means there's no laws that teach you how to navigate this, right? You're having an absolutely unique experience, and you're having an absolutely unique experience, and everyone is, right? How do you navigate that in a way that's progressive? That's the question. And we can get into a mode where we're like, where we artificially bifurcate these things, where we go, okay, here's my spiritual life, and then here's the rest of my life. And we have these sort of two different lives which are divergent. And then the one that's happening in the quote unquote material side, we're like, oh yeah, of course this guy's a jerk, and of course this is, because it's all the material world, And then we're like, okay, here I am in the spiritual world, in the temple. But actually, there has to be one unique life, one unified life. Okay. And it's all from the Lord for the Lord. And that is where you can make progression and see the mercy of the Lord, even in difficult or anomalous or any of these circumstances. And actually, in sermons, we can read this in a little bit. There's a beautiful chapter called The Guardian Ruled Family. And Srila Guru Maharaj gives a very beautiful way of how to start to operate in this unlegislated environment. There's no rules. It's like you can't look up the scripture and be like, okay, so what happens if, like I'm in this situation and my boss is like that, and I just lost a bunch of money, and I think maybe I should go to Portugal, but I also want to go, to Iceland and just leave this whole thing behind. And, like, but, right. It's just like, what do you're going to be like, I can't find it. There's like, how do you navigate that, right? As a devotee. And, this sort of broad, very subtle and beautiful practicing life is the wealth of Rupanuga Sampradaya and the wealth of Chaitanya Saraswati. So sorry, I just wanted
No,
to.
that's super nice. It's interesting that somehow or other we wandered onto this subject, because oftentimes, like, I'm contemplating Sharanagati is the antidote to fundamentalism on the deepest level. And the danger when we talk about Sharanagati that really freaks people out is you can misinterpret it, right? Because ultimately you are making decisions and we can make wrong decisions. And the answer is yes, absolutely everything is up for misinterpretation, but we have to try. And ultimately, that's the risk of being engaged in your life, is that you're going to propose something upwards as an offering, and with so much trust that the Lord is going to rectify our improv. Who are we to say we can offer a perfect offering? If we're really, really flawed, then the offering's probably going to be flawed, right? And so then we're mentaling out about this perfect offering, and it's like, well, the person who's offering it is flawed. And in fact, we can say Atma Samarpane has that inside of it. It's like offering who you are, not the like pretend version of who you are. It's like it's not like the Lord, like we have like these little closets in ourselves that the Lord can't see. Like he knows us better than we know ourselves. He sees us. We don't see us. That's the trouble, right? And so now you're going the antidote to fundamentalism, which is, and really what we can say is a helpful gauge for fundamentalism is there's like some interior call actually that's happening all the time. So sometimes when we are stuck in some kind of ritual and then all of a sudden we're going, why am I feeling like this? Then that real prayer again has to surge out. Lord, why am I feeling like this? What am I missing? What is in this circumstance that, again, I feel lost? And you are the person actually that's behind all of these things to actually connect. Like, are we actually cleaning for him? Or are we like bitterly like, wow, everyone just left behind a mess again? And like this happens. Like we can do the same exact activity with some deep intention and meditation going on, or the same one where it's just like, wow, and the cups are left in the wrong spot every single time, every day. Like these internal dialogues that are happening are very, very important. Very, like, right, I love that sentence, says, become guardian to the gateway of your mind, right? Like we should be going like, oh, and then you go, is that actually a true thought? Is that real? And sometimes it's not. And then you can go, that's not true. That's not true. That person isn't actually encompassed in that set of words. And it's relieving for the mind. It's helpful for the mind, right? The mind is a tool, right? It's a like and dislike machine. And it has to be regulated. That's how everyone say, oh, how do you relieve your mind? Okay, all suffering occurs in the plane of the mind. Guru Maharaj's own words. We can digest that for a long time. Okay, all suffering occurs within the mind. Okay, so heavy. I mean, the first time I heard it, it was like extreme rebellion. Like, no, like what about? And you come up with all the reasons. But ultimately, it is all
Vishaka
occurring.
Devi ki
Oh
jai.
my gosh. Dhanwad, dhanwad. All suffering is occurring within the mind. How do we then relieve our mind if all of our suffering is occurring within our mind? Okay, the mind is delivered by offering it. That means like that thing has to be put on a track. Okay, what's the thing that can actually start to put it on a track that can get through the anomalous situations of my own life, right? Where that prayer actually starts coming out of us. So then you go, okay, one of the limbs of surrender is humility. Okay, all faiths of the world are agreeing that this is an extremely valuable substance. Okay, that the very universe itself is reciprocating with this thing. This very subtle motion of the interior heart is so valuable that the infinite himself and herself will start to reciprocate with that. Well, what's the first notion of humility? I'm coming into contact with something wonderful, something that is greater than myself. I'm in reference to something that's amazing. And I don't understand actually what I'm in contact with, right? So the inverse of humility you can say is pride, maybe, right? And then there's these quotes that come,
Hubris.
right? And or in like Greek storytelling, for example, right? So hubris comes, and at the exact moments that hubris comes, the nemesis appears on the horizon. Okay. That means the exact opposite thing that will come to cure that inside of my own heart is manifested in the same moment as that hubris. The universe is trying to correct itself all the time, right? Krishna's behind all of these things that he's uncovering them inside of us so carefully, so kindly, so patiently, right? And so immediately, right? And this is a principle of the universe, right? So in that moment, so what's some of the quotes about pride, right? Pride is the pathway to hell. Okay, well, what's hell? Deeper and deeper senses of isolation. What's yoga or yuj? Deeper and deeper senses of connection and connection with every layer, right? Because like you're reading, like, what is the saintly person doing? They're not looking at everyone going like, wow, you guys are just suffering the results of all your sinful activity. Like, sucks for you. Like, don't you understand? Right? They don't like nothing like that's coming from the scriptures. They're saying like, oh, this forest fire of desire, it has caused your mind to feel so inflamed and full of anxiety. There is some cooling motion. And actually, he's so wonderful and so beautiful that mercy's nature is that it wants to rain. So there's a message that's coming that's very kind. So they're not feeling necessarily judgment towards all of the people that have somehow or other created some inflammatory condition, right? Because that's what the senses like to do. That's all they do. They just desire, right? Your mind takes it in like a computer and we go, I like it, I like it. I don't like it, I don't like it. And that's, we can think that's all who we are. It's just is a like dislike bot, right? And really, like if we're gonna go into like the modern age that we live in, right? Like they're spending a tremendous ocean of money to figure out what you like and don't like before you do to capture your attention. And they're very good at it. So the world of the contemplative sage is saying, hey, you start to think about this thing that you're inside of this little vehicle and what's going on. And now you're in the unlegislated, real part of your life. And it's very helpful to go, oh, I'm actually feeling some disconnection with my life. And I don't know why. And now you go, oh, this quality of humility, doinya, right? I'm in proximity to, I don't understand this place that I've arrived in. And there's some softness that occurs. And then what the scriptures are saying is humility is such a beautiful quality that the upper world cannot hold itself back. So it's not your intellectual prowess, it's not your beauty where you seduce, and manipulate people. It's not the words that you coerce someone into doing. None of that's very interesting to the infinite,
Mhm.
right? It's like the source of all beauty is the most beautiful anything and everything that can be contemplated in the universe to its ad infinitum, to its zenith. Whatever little seduction game that we have going on is like ugly. But that cracked heart of humility, and then it says, we are barely conscious of our guardians and the upper world, right? We don't have that right there. But their job of the upper world is to reciprocate and pull us into our service. So now this kind of seemingly subtle, vague, kind of posture where it seems like weak has become the most powerful gravity in our lives. And that thing that seemed on the side as kind of negligible can pull into center focus. And they're saying, you do all of these activities, but you meditate on this internal state. And what is Guru Maharaj's definition of humility? Humility means being open to infinite possibility. Wherever my Lord wants to put me, that's where I want to be because he knows what's good for me more than I know what's good for me. This is an amazing concept. You can be in any geography. You can be on any planet. You can be in any body. You can be in any circumstance. And now you have a navigation system to actually go by. You go, okay, and what does that mean? Tremendous trust. Tremendous trust, right? Because why would you be humble to someone who doesn't have your good in mind? Right? Who doesn't actually, right? So then you start to move to these other limbs of surrender. And now all of a sudden, this thing that seemed kind of vague and like, how do you do this? Now it's become the most important part, actually, the core of your life, right? That's why Gormarsh is saying, how do you actually live in infinity? Right? How do you actually feel motion in your life in infinity? Right? So first there's this notion of like, I'm in proximity to something wonderful. I don't understand all the chapters. I see such a limited aspect of what's going on. I don't even know why this is going on, and I can't decipher it. Then there's like some actual honest prayer that can start to happen, right? And then, like what happens, right? The whole universe is folding on these concepts, right? That means like reality itself is folding and unfolding on these concepts, right? So, the very famous story of Dhruva Maharaj, right? He leaves, his mother tells him like, I'm actually not the most powerful wife, and your dad is actually the king of the whole world. There's only one person more powerful than him. That's the way it is. And he walks into the jungle. And then inside the purport in the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada says, at that moment when there is a call from a soul, immediately the next teacher will arrive. Krishna will come as the next teacher, and he will help you on your path. Right? Then who is coming to Dhruva? Narada Muni, right? The intergalactic, most wonderful messenger of the good news, right? And he's like, wow, like that. So then that's true. And that's a principle of the universe. When my heart calls out, the next teacher will arrive. That's amazing. That's like the ultimate good news. I'm not alone. That this whole, Gormars uses that word organic whole over and over and over again. Organic means it's alive. You're part of something that's alive. You're not in some like isolated hell pit where you're just in your own mind and then like sending blank prayers out, like hoping it's going to end at some point in time soon. Like, like that's not the zenith of spiritual life. No, no. Your heart's expressing itself and some mysterious thing is starting to come back to you. And that's informing the next decision that's going to happen in your life. And instead of being disassociated and checking out and all these things, now you're very much in it. And right, and that's why you get wonderful, wonderful stories. And you're also in your own wonderful story, right? That's why they say conflict is the soul of the story. Means that part where you're struggling, that's your story. That thing that you're running away from, that you're resisting, that you don't want to go through with all the cells of your, right? That which you most need is where you least want to look for it, kind of a thing. The Lord is also there. And he is also so kindly and affectionately assisting the transformation that must occur that we're deeply desiring, right? That's where your potential is actually hiding. So it starts with humility, and it is the cure for fundamentalism.
Sure do.
Yeah, amazing. Let's have 5 minutes break.
Perfect.
And then we have a question from Shama Priya Didi.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So we have a question from Shama Priya Didi. And this is related to about 20 minutes ago, but you'll catch up. I often find myself in exactly this situation you describe. I genuinely try to shape the world around me according to my own expectations, and it often feels as though I know how to navigate life correctly. The most surprising part is that I don't even see a problem with it. I don't feel that my perception is distorted or that I am placing my ego at the center of everything. Then I attend a lecture, join a Zoom discussion, or read a spiritual book, and I'm brought back to the realization that I am not the controller. I remember that all these circumstances are simply reactions to my own actions, while in truth, everything is unfolding according to Krishna's will. At such moments, I feel as though I have finally understood the lesson. I feel that I have realized it, accepted it, and will remember it from now on. Yet a week later, I find myself forgetting all over again, riding the waves of karma. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he is the source of both knowledge and forgetfulness. I sincerely try to shift my focus towards him and his sweet will. But after only a short time, I discovered that I'm once again caught in new difficulties, completely absorbed in forgetfulness.
Yeah.
What can help me remain more steadily conscious of this truth?
So beautiful.
How can I remember Krishna more consistently and not become so easily lost in forgetfulness? And what should I do when, with time, I forget even to pray for mercy to remember all of this?
Wow. It's a humble and real question.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, you got to do better, Shamapriya. Seriously. That's very, very beautiful, honestly. Such a honest expression. And the expression of someone in real practicing life. Sometimes it's said that
You speak a little louder.
sometimes it's said that the only problem is that we're forgetful. Because, our movement, our intention is Krishna consciousness. And Krishna is underneath everything, as he says in Gita. And it's a mystery. Why do we forget him? But we're split. We're dissonant. There's a term, cognitive dissonance. And we're all very dissonant, actually. And dissonance is when you hold two conflicting opinions or two conflicting principles. And that's actually the root problem of everything, right? There's a famous shloka, bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata syat ishadapesya viparyayo asmriti. Asmriti means forgetfulness. And all of our anxiety, all of our fear is caused by dvitiya bhinivesh, which means we have multiple purposes within the world. A part of us is thinking, oh, I should serve Krishna. And another part of us is kind of like, actually, everything should serve me. And that causes anxiety because a deeper part of us knows that we actually don't control everything. And that there's uncertainty into whether I'm going to be able to arrange the environment in just the right way as I want it. And maybe it won't turn out like that. In fact, it might even turn out in the way exactly that I don't want, right? And that's called bhayam. And this is a very, very sublime guidance. Your entire fear is only because of Ditya Abhinivesh. Ditya Abhinivesh again means multiple purposes. Your two purposes. You're schizophrenic or whatever you want to say, right? We have like a problem where there's multiple purposes, but actually, it's all for the Lord. It's all from the Lord, and we're forgetting that. So that you can say is the fundamental problem in our spiritual life. This asmriti. How is it that we're constantly in this state of non-remembrance? Even though you would think it's like the most obvious thing to remember is to remember the Lord. And real practicing life, real spiritual life is the addressing of this problem. And the path of Saranagati is very foundational to this. In the beginning, when one tries to practice Saranagati, it's very difficult to do it unless you're suffering. Because when you're not suffering, you're kind of just like, wow, I think I am great, actually. I think I'm doing fantastic. And why can't everybody understand this? I am fantastic. And you can cruise along in your life and feel like, okay, yeah, my plans are happening. I made a really good project plan and, boom, 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 they're getting checked off the list. And, I kind of think I got this down, actually. But actually what's underneath that is all just exploitation. Oh, everything needs to arrange itself how I want to, blah, 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 blah. And then you get some reaction to that. And then it's kind of like stings. And, sometimes it's described as it's more burning and painful than lightning. And Lochandas Thakur says in that song of Mahaprabhu. And then we have to reset. And in that beginning stage, a lot of times that's when we start remembering the Lord. Like, wait, what's this all about again? And Guru Maharaj is saying those moments are not coming randomly. They're coming very, very, very attentively. Not only that, there's some very, very subtle feeling that's occurring. And that subtle feeling is just Dandavad Prabhu. Oh, wow. I remember you can play mridanga so nicely. That's the line. In Guna Kirtan by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it says, Hridaya Pidita Jar, Krishna Chikitsokatar. We all have some type of fever, some type of disease that's happening in our heart. But Krishna is the doctor who can cure that. And in the moment where our karma has caught up to us, Srila Guru Maharaj says, it's surrounded us. There's no escape. Right? Sometimes we get in a little karmic circumstance. We're like looking to get out of it. And then sometimes we can, at least can delay it a little bit. But sometimes it's come and there's nothing you can do and you just have to go through this. And in those moments, the practicing life becomes extremely poignant and real. And not only that, the exact feeling that we're feeling is actually like a surgery. Because if you really think about it, There's so much subtlety in the feeling. Like if you, like the feeling of losing, like maybe you lost your job, right? That's a particular feeling that's happening in your psychophysical body. It's like super exact feeling. Then it's a little bit different if you lost a loved one or you lost a possession. Like all these things, they're all resulting in some type of feeling that's occurring within our consciousness. That feeling is not meaningless or random. The Lord is the supplier of all feeling. He has to be thought of, and his mercy, including in the form of that feeling, has to be accepted. And then Guru Maharaj is saying, Tate anukampam sushamikshimano, right? His grace is now occurring for me. And as a devotee, we have to stop to fear these things and stop to judge these things and actually just say, my Lord, I accept. I am for you and I want whatever you give to me. The progression that we say we want is contained within that.
Mm-hmm.
Something has to die in order for us to live. And that's the feeling of progression. Something has to be shed from us. And a new self has to be continually reborn as we move in our progression. And that feeling of addressing with faith this thing that every part of our ego does not want to happen. That takes faith and the mercy of Guru, and then we have to pass through it. And the mood should be, I will endure this. Right? That's what that verse means. I will endure this. And I will endure it in a mood of susamiksha. Susamiksha means self-examination, auspicious self-examination. Susamiksha means something is off in me. I am in conflict with the flow of reality, with the will of God. And therefore I'm suffering like this. And this exact feeling is the cure for my misalignment. It is the cure. In his infinite grace, he's giving me the cure to my misalignment. And I will accept it, embrace it, endure it, feel it, not try to get away, right? Because mukti is going to attack you super hard in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to be like, I want to get away. I want to physically move my body. I want to disassociate my mind. I want to take intoxication. I want to blame somebody else. I want to take action on that thing. I want to, like, whatever it is, it all has to change on the outside instead of, I'm wrong. God's merciful. Let me
Go through.
Let me go through this. And that trust and faith in the Lord is essential. And there's even such an extreme statement Srila Guru Maharaj makes, because there's actually a section in this incredible book, Sri Guru and His Grace, in a chapter which is called, also another amazing title, God Consciousness versus Society Consciousness. And in this section, it's called Surrounded by Karma, which is what we were talking about. You can't get out. Now you're in this situation where you must experience what it is that you're meant to experience. And Guru Maharaj says you have to find that his sweet will is occurring. And you have to enter into it and endure it. And then you will feel progression. You will feel some unwanted thing become highlighted. And then by his grace, there's some motion of being able to leave it behind. And Guru Maharaj says, you have to, he says something extremely intense. That Those who have felt this feeling, they have made spiritual progress. And until you have felt that feeling, everything is theoretical, and you will give an adulterated thing to others. So we all have to pass through this. And we all have plenty of opportunities. Isn't that great?
I was gonna say,
Sorry, just to finish the sentence. But our practicing life, usually in the beginning, has to start in some difficult situation, because that's how we can remember him. We were remembering him in the times of difficulty. Otherwise, our ego can take over and become exuberant. And we're just kind of like, yeah. I do like my spiritual thing on the side. I'm kind of busy right now though, because I got a lot going on. I mean, seriously, like I got a lot going on. And you can forget Krishna. So, in the beginning, we have to seize the opportunities of these difficulties and pass through them. But ultimately, we should try to remember the Lord all the time and dedicate ourselves to him. We have to notice our own dissonance. We have to notice that we have multiple things, and we have to orient around serving him. We have to know, as a part of Saranagati, I am for him and everything is for him, and try to bring that into our life. And then there's, not a insubstantial thing, a very true thing, a very deep thing, which is Maha Mantra. Guru Maharaj translates mantra as being compounded from two Sanskrit words, mana trayate, which means to yoke your mind. So your mind wants to go, oh yeah, blah, 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 but the mood of chanting should always be done in the mood of offering ourselves to him. Srila Gurudev, when he used to give initiation, he used to say, it's inviting Radha and Krishna to dance on your tongue. Mm-hmm. It means that I am your dancing ground. I am for you. And to chant the name is to pull your mind into a mood of offering every day, right? Mantra means like your mind is going to run around, but you have to actually intentionally put your determination and your freedom and choose to use that time and remember the Lord for mantra, but always in a mood of Sharanagati, not in a mood of attainment, not in a mood of colonizing the spiritual world, not in a mood of feeling the bhav or whatever it is, just in a mood of offering yourself, that I am for him. And eventually there's a whole series that Krishna lays out with Uddhava, which culminates in Bhidite Hridaya Grantish. But eventually we will start to remember him all the time. And we'll still have our anarthas, and we'll still have our karmas. But Guru Maharaj says your mood will transform. Not that, oh no, another, a bad thing can happen. Like, seriously, why me? Not that mood, right? The mood will become, oh, you start to see clearly, I'm the tyrant. I've been the exploiter. I'm the oppressor. This is much less than I deserve. He's so graceful to me. And in that mood, we will endure and offer ourselves to him even more. And our Krishna consciousness will become even more, Guru Maharaj says. It's not. And then, like the sun, it said in the shloka, like the sun, he will arise in your heart and cast away all of the impurities. And then you will find yourself in a broad and deep land of freedom. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah. Go ahead, Rose.
You can what? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. I think you took it all away. Oh. But just kind of going back a little bit. this kind of imminent problem of forgetfulness, um, I think there's like a couple of practical tips as you let the kind of meta structure wash over you, right? So one of those practical tips uh, that Gurudev or Srila Govinda Maharaj advocated is for responsible service. Okay. It is a very unglamorous and can be and is also subject to the danger of fundamentalism, as we discussed earlier. But that's life, it's full of risks. So you have to take a risk somewhere.
Mm.
Okay. And you have to really embrace that. You're headed into uncertainty, right? That's what Prahlad Maharaj is telling all of his friends. You don't know where you're going, actually. So you're offering a proposal in an imperfect offering, and that's what you got. Okay. So you don't know what's going to happen. But uh before responsible service is also within a sambandha, right? So sambandha gyan means there's like an organization that you're starting to slot your life into. And that means one decision in the world of dissonance, because how do you deal with the cognitive dissonance of your life? Okay, so the first way that you deal with the cognitive dissonance of your life is you have to take one decision and put it on top of another. Okay, does that deal with the other thing that's dissonant? Not completely, but you're starting to put a priority on things. That's what Sambandhagya means. One thing is more important, that it's not all actually like the same. So we can say we're trying to perform a knowledge sacrifice, or, right, we're trying to speak something of the truth and we're trying to use our minds to do that thing. That's one choice, right, on top of another choice of what could be done on Saturday afternoon. Okay. So that's an option. You have to like, no, I'm making a choice, right? If I'm sitting down, standing up, whatever I'm doing, I'm making a choice. And then you can attach a hierarchy to that choice. This is a more important choice than taking a nap. This is a more important choice, right? So you're starting to add a hierarchy. And then what is the hierarchy to whom and for what? Okay. So in the beginning, there's this affectionate like advice. Start to learn how to give of yourself. Something very wonderful is going to happen. And it's true. And then the refinement of that is to whom and for what, right? Because we're going to be giving our energy no matter what. And a lifetime passes. All the cliches are true quite quickly. Quite quickly, it's all moving. So that means that you have to set a goal. Then you're contemplating, what is this goal? So the job of the courageous soul on a journey is to find what is the highest goal in the whole universe that I could possibly try to move towards. And what the Vedas and the scriptures are saying is the best thing you can do in the whole universe is learn how to love the center. And if you can learn how to become a lover of the infinite, everything else is solved. Okay, that's what the scriptures say. And then you have to go on this inquisitive, curious, authentic journey. One, is it actually the most wonderful thing for me to become a lover of the infinite? What does it actually mean to become a lover of the infinite? And all of the things entailed, right? And then you're going to start to read. There's many different scriptures, there's many different paths, there's many different advices, and some of them even seem like they're in conflict with each other, right? So now you're setting a goal, and then there's a hierarchy within that goal. And within that world of hierarchy, you're taking some responsible service in part of that goal. Now, what are some of the reasons you wouldn't want to set a goal? Well, one thing a goal does that is incredibly terrifying is it passes some judgment on your journey. If you set a very high goal, you will see some distance or some gap in where you want to go. Okay, if my goal is to hopefully procure dinner tonight, I'm not going to feel super stressed about it, and then we'll quickly like attain it for the most part. Yes, there's some uncertainty, but it's pretty low. Okay. If you're saying, I want to know, like, there's a source of the multiverse, and this planet is like a mustard seed with unlimited mustard seeds of planets, with unlimited types of body forms, and all of them are coming from him. And all these scriptures consistently express that he's most mysterious. Now you've changed what your goal is. Okay. So that's why we shy from making a goal, because now there's a tremendous journey that has just like, right? What does Lao Tzu say? Like the journey of 1,000 steps starts with just one foot, like you're going like, oh, I see some part of this path. I don't even see where the whole path, but the one step is here and this staircase has just like, unfolded itself. So this is the reason that you set an impossible goal. Well, how do we know it's impossible? Rupa Goswami himself, right? Even Lord Brahma is struggling to see the tips of the nails of your feet. Brahma is the quantum self-realized guru of the Sampradaya and the creator of absolutely everything that we're in contact with. Personified time is one of his advisors in his loka. Okay, very subtle being. Should Brahma decide to come wherever we are, we would fall to the ground in shock that such a being can exist. And he's saying, I'm struggling to understand who you are. Still, O Achyuta, I've heard of the waves of your astonishing mercy, and I yearn to see you. So now you've set the impossible goal. Great. Realized souls in the universe are struggling with it. But because it's who you are, and we hear he's very kind, and he has some soft heart towards the fallen souls, of which we are happily in that category, now we're
A little unhappily.
sometimes extremely unhappily in that category to the point of abject desperation. So you set the impossible goal, and then you're asking, is it true? And then you have to go on this experimental journey. Is it actually more wonderful to give than to take? And actually go, right? And then you're starting to go like, okay, well, if all I'm looking forward to is like a holiday where everyone gives me gifts, and then finally you become an adult and you're still only looking forward to when everyone gives you stuff, what are the other like realized people going to say around you? You're very childish. Okay. So like that's not an attainment to see reality as this thing that needs to be giving you stuff. Right. So like Christmas or birthday or whatever the like, holiday is, if you're just like thinking about what is everyone going to get for you, not super realized. And then you start to give something and something strange occurs. What's this sensation that occurs inside of me where it's far superior, right? That's what the Vaishnavas are saying. It's not comparable. It's exponential. This thing overflows. Right? We're not even on the same field anymore. The vocabulary is just disbanded. So then you're saying it's more wonderful to give than to take. Okay, so now we're in a state of forgetfulness, but we have an ideal. We want to try and serve the infinite cause of all causes. And we want to try to become a giver, not a taker. Right? There's a major, major quest. Major. All the things of a real adventure are there. What's inside of a real adventure? False summit. You thought you got a realization. You're actually still in the valley. Okay, cul-de-sac. You went down the wrong lane. Like you're going in a circle. Betrayal, right? What's Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying is like the first danger on the path is the false guru, right? And who is representing that? Putana. What does she look like? Very beautiful. What is she telling you? Exactly what you want to hear, right? That's like that strange responsibility we have, radical responsibility. So then we have to even be wary of like, yes, if we hear exactly what we want, some mysterious things. Then you go, okay, I'm forgetful of you, but I want to become a lover of reality, and I heard that you're very kind. So now we try and take some responsible service intentionally. Why would we do that? Because we don't feel like it all the time. And how we feel like all the time is not the most important thing. Okay? Like, nobody gets fit going to the gym only when they feel like it. It's going to be erratic at best. You're never actually going to like get past major barrier. You're not going to break through. And what you're in search for, what are you in search for? Progress, breakthrough, right? Bhakti Anukul, Bhakti Pratikul, right? Something fresh something surprising. You know, it's amazing that there's this name of the Lord, Navayovana, right? Who is ever fresh, or you could say, who is surprising? Come on, spiritual life should not feel like you're in a Groundhog's Day movie. Right? Like the character wakes up and the exact same day happens, like endlessly. Like that's terrifying. No soul wants the same day. What you want is something cool and fun and fresh and surprising and adventurous. Okay? That's actually what you're hungry for. And you don't get that unless you go through the breakthrough. And then on that breakthrough, like, this is real. This is what we're talking about. This is what's inside of this. Okay. And then the journey continues, right? Because Guru Maharaj's own words, on our journey to the infinite, it may be a little longer than we expect. And then actually, it's one of my favorite sentences. He goes, and at this moment on the journey, we will find the value of the Vaishnava and our friends, right? So this like amazing re-highlighting of that friendship and advice and the good news, right? I do like that word gospel. It's such a nice word. It means what's the good news, right? You can say like saintly people are sharing the good news. And that good news, what does it have to have inside? It has to have hope inside of it, right? Hope means faith in the infinite. You're going, oh, something so hopeful is occurring that even me in my darkest hour in the middle of this valley that I found myself in, there's some reason to carry on, right? And then you're starting to go, oh, so whether I feel like it or whether I don't has now become secondary. Very, very important. We all have to experience doing something we don't feel like and feeling something wonderful happen internally. And now you know that this thing is not 100% reliable. And what is the sentence? Not everything that you think is true. That's helpful. It's really, really helpful. Otherwise, because right, she's saying like, oh, it doesn't even occur to me to not think that what I'm thinking is not true. It's true. Like we're all kind of in like this AI autopilot. Like it's this band-aid, and it's like a ninja auto healing band-aid of like I'm the heroic victim of my circumstances, and everybody else is really bad and annoying, and I've actually been pretty delightful, right? You know, and, right. It's like they don't even know how much I'm tolerating them. Like such a terrible like
They're supposed to
way.
be Vaishnavas, so they should tolerate me, but they're not doing that. They're so bad at it.
Right? And so then you're going, not everything that I think is true. I'm going to search after an ideal that's a North Star. And I'm going to try for that thing regardless of those things. And then see what happens from that. That's a scientific process, actually. You can feel in your own life motion where you didn't think there was motion to be had, right? Then you start to go, let me tell some people about this thing. Right now, you're not just giving couch philosophy, right? It's like we have to like get away from this like idea of like all of it's occurring in the mind and like this is super cool and fantastic. Well, how you get rid of that is something's happening. I've placed in my hierarchy of priority, this thing is more important. Then I will explore what that means. And then you feel some actual change in your life. So that's the way that we become more full of remembrance, or at least that's my offering of what can assist with this sensation of forgetfulness that permeates everything. And there's finer and finer motion. I was talking with Keish yesterday. This is so full of life that maybe even the thing that helped you so much sometime, that's not helping you anymore. And that gap that we all feel, there's nobody everybody has some struggle that's going on. Everybody has something burning not too far from the surface that's calling their attention to it, right? And the Lord is behind all of those things. Why is my attention being captured by this thing over and over and over and over again, right? Like, why? Why? There's so many things actually that you can be caught by. Why that thing? And then we go into that and we go, oh, and then that actually forces movement, right? That separation, that gap, if we don't feel it, so we shouldn't feel sad actually if we're feeling some gap in our life, right? That's the fuel. What else is going to impel us to do something? Some strange sense of lack. I'm not feeling this thing. Where are you hiding, Lord, in this circumstance? How am I unable to remember you? That gap forces the evolution for the next thing. And then that same thing which we avoided, which we didn't want, which was causing us pain, has now become like the jet engine fuel for actual progress. And then what do? We propose something as a result. Otherwise, we don't propose anything, right? You're just like, ugh, I'm suffering. And then you go, oh, Lord, what about like this? Something like this? Can I offer this? Would you like this? Is this possibly optional in the things that I can try and attempt to worship you with? You know? And then you're going like that. And then, of course, what comes back is reciprocation. And that's this motion of the heart that is spoken about in Sharanagati, right? Because first, there's humility. There's this not knowing. I don't know what you want. I don't know what's in this circumstance. I don't understand it. Right. Then there's this, we talked about first thing this morning, confidence in his protection. Why would you surrender to him? Why would you trust him? Right. And then it all moves to the trunk of this tree. And the trunk of this tree is Goptrit Varana. And it's translated in English in a most mysterious mixture of words. It's saying in English, embracing, which is like hugging his guardianship, which sounds in a certain way so vague. Right? I'm trying to embrace his guardianship. And then Srila Guru Maharaj in his infinite kindness, he's saying, what is the guardian? The guardian is who wants good for you more than you want for yourself, and who loves you more than you love yourself. That is who is at the firmament of all of reality. That's where then you can trust, right? Then you can try and make it a proposal. Then you can make, okay, what can go wrong in a certain sense? He loves me more than I love me. Okay, now I can feel like some trust in the universe. I can feel like some faith in this entire thing that's going on. Right? And so we can say like we're here because our faith is actually somewhat damaged. Right? We don't really trust that he loves us more than we love ourselves. We don't really trust that he wants good for us. But we also at the same time, right? That's our cognitive dissonance, you know, that those two things are running. And then you're going, oh, my Lord's so kind that he's putting me in a situation where this can be healed, where this kind of distrust in me can be left behind, where I can learn actually how to become a lover of the infinite. That's really what we're saying. I want to learn how to actually express something, right? What is the word expression coming from? It means something's getting crushed, right? Express some feeling out of it. Express that out of it. You're crushing it, and then something like concentrate is starting to come out, right? I want to learn how to express some love for the Lord, right? So all these circumstances are ultimately condensing and crushing and refining all these different things, and His grace is behind all of them. And you know, where it's so lovely, somehow so mysteriously, the infinite is directly involved with that process. That's amazing. Right? Your next movement, your next progression, your next motion, the Lord is directly involved with that. Ad infinitum. That's the best news.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't know if you wanted to say anything about Goptra Varana.
Go Trife Varnam. I mean, we can see what does Shama Priya say?
Yeah.
don't know if she.
isn't responding.
Okay.
She's hearing heaven.
Okay.
She
But-
forgot she was on the Zoom.
Ellie and- Oh,
By the way, we love you, Sean.
We do.
yeah.
So now is the time for Artie. But because we actually have, this is so rare and so wonderful, and we've been joined by quite a few guests since we began this session. We're just wondering if you could maybe just take a couple of minutes to, if possible, in a little nutshell, what do you feel that Gormaj is expressing is the most essential point to grasp about Sharanagati, if that's possible. For all of our guests that have just come.
I can. Kelly Kadamanan Devi was asking, what is the most essential yet brief instruction of Guru Maharaj when it relates to Sharanagati?
For those that might be hearing this for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, if you really examine what Guru Maharaj is saying, he has a Guru Maharaj is. I'm not saying anything new that anyone doesn't know, but he has Vigyan. Vigyan means a systemic understanding of reality. That's why he can answer any question, because he understands the system. And no matter from what perspective it's coming from, he can direct it, understand where it is, and then direct it to the highest thing. And consistently, as you watch Guru Maharaj or you read anything, that's what he's doing all the time. So Guru Maharaj, like, what can we say? Somehow we're in the mercy of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and in the merciful glance of Srila Govinda Maharaj. And it really is a rare and almost unthinkable mercy to be in the line of Rupa Goswami. It's a tough question that you ask, but I can try to answer it. I do believe, because all of these limbs of surrender, they're all based around one thing, which is, and this is backed up by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, backed up by Srila Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami, that Goptritve Varanam is the trunk of the tree of surrender. And that all of the other limbs are done within the context of Goptritve Varanam. So while it is very difficult to understand in English, it is actually the most fundamental point. And what it allows is a resetting of our relationship with reality. That's the most important thing, is we have a fearful relationship with reality. We're animalistic to a certain extent. And animalistic means we're concerned about protecting ourselves, right? And we've learned over time with our animalistic experience that we need to be suspicious and we need to be untrusting in order to protect ourselves. And when it comes to spiritual life, we apply that same filter. We're examining things for whether it contains poison. Guru says, when you actually acquaint yourself with reality properly, you will understand that that type of examination is like a baby examining his mother's breast for poison. Nothing but love and nutrition is coming to you. That's the viewpoint of reality. That's the standpoint of a Vaishnava in the deepest sense. And that means Goptritve Varanam. And all things are practiced from that perspective. So if you take Donya, for example, which means humility. Humility, as Kishori mentioned, this is in a chapter called Humility, it's a section called Humility in Bhajan, Villain Apparent in Sermons 2. But Srila Guru Maharaj says, humility means that you're open to infinite possibility. Well, why would you be open to infinite possibility? Is because you know that there's not one possibility within infinite possibility that is bad for you, because it's going to come from the Lord. we have a very like restricted and limited viewpoint of reality. And we have these mental patterns that are so small. Like if you think about, you know, the spectrum of possibility. She was just complaining about how I always do that, and I never realized it until now. If you think about the spectrum of possibility, we can't even conceive the tiniest fragment of the spectrum of possibility. What can occur at any instant is literally inconceivable to us. And our mind will generally concoct like 4 things and be like, well, if that one happened or that one, maybe it's like 3 things, right? Out of like a literal inconceivable number of possibilities. And we're kind of like, I need one of these 3. It's insane. It's like totally insane. And we also will come up with like 2 or 3 fears, right? Not like 50 trillion fears, but we'll kind of be like, that one could happen. Maybe that one. There's like 2, you know. Right. It's like literal madness. And what Guru Maharaj is talking about is something so spectacularly broad and wonderful, which is the entire spectrum is the grace of the Lord, and you can handle the whole thing. Like the whole thing. Thank you. So that's humility in Guru Maharaj's viewpoint. It's all based on Goprit Vivarnam. Humility means I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little. In fact, I know so little that the amount I don't know is way more than the amount I do know. And the amount that I don't know is way more than the amount that I do know that I don't know. Is that making any sense? There's a certain things where we could be like, I know I don't know that. Well, then there's an inconceivable number of things that we don't even know enough to not know that we don't know. Okay? There you go. There's your epistemology lesson for today. The knowledge about knowledge is like actually hell for your brain. However, it is very useful to understand that what you don't know is gigantic. Okay, that's humility. And not only that, what I don't know is probably more important than what I do know. And not only that, it's good. So when this situation comes, your mind is going to have its animalistic reaction. Oh, this is bad. This is good. This is bad. Oh, that how come that, you know, blah, 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 blah. And Saranagati is going to say, shh, you don't know. There's an infinite number of butterfly effects that are happening right now. You don't know. Your little mind is going, oh, no, because then that's going to be, wrong. Krishna is good. And I will serve him.
No.
I will serve him. And his will, and the will, you know, in the deeper sense, as the Vaishnava progresses, you'll understand it's the will of the service energy, actually. That there's a much deeper service that's happening. But his will is good. And I'm going to begin my interaction with that with humility, meaning I don't know, and there's infinite possibilities that can happen, and I want to serve that. And that's all based on Goprit Vivarnam. So Goprit Vivarnam is like this foundation, right? Because goodness, the guardian, is at the root of all of reality. And Guru Maharaj is saying, you have to find the smiling face behind the curtain. You have to find that sweet Lord who is at the basis of all of us. And that's how you have to move through your life. So Saranagati is the way to do that. It is the path of Krishna consciousness. It is what Mahaprabhu advocates, and not just any Lord. Mahaprabhu is saying you have to go directly to the center. You don't pass through Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, Mahar, Jana, Tapa, Satya. You don't pass through Prakriti Nirvana, Brahma Nirvana, Shiva Loka, Vaikuntha, etc. You see Radha and Krishna's Leela at the basis of every atom that's in existence, and you interact with that. That's what Guru Maharaj's summary of what Mahaprabhu is advocating is. You go straight to the center, and the center is everywhere, and there's no circumference. Right where you are in your real life right now, you do that. And that's, I guess, what I would say.